We are here with DATO KEE. She is a deputy chairman of the Malaysia Tourism Promotion Group Board. DATO KEE is very well known for her passion for and knowledge about cultural heritage related matters with Malaysia in general and of course tourism. Welcome.
Thank you, Charles.
Tell us about your new project. We're going to start about the new project and then go backwards and talk about more existing. You're going to be tracing some heritage of who as it relates to Malaysia?
Well, whenever we talk about promotion and marketing of a country, many people must realize that the soul of a city lies with the people. And for this, you have to naturally trace where they come from, their place of origin, or if they are not natives of that country. Now, the pet project that I'm involved in is now to look at Malaysia in general and Penang in particular. Actually, it's not only Penang, it is the northern states of Malaysia in particular, and to trace the trails of the early pioneers. Now, as you know, Malaysia is multiracial. The main races are Malays, Chinese, and Indians. So definitely we would like to know where we come from. Now, to me, the interesting part of this project is when you go back into history, it's not very long. Because if you take Penang, for example, it is 200 over years, since 1756. But what is exciting is that the people of China especially, you can look into a niche market. Now, I'm Malaysian Chinese, and I can trace back my ancestry to Tenghai, the city of Tenghai in southern China. And my great-grandfather came from the port of Swatow. And it's all written in the records handed down from the family. Now, the Kee family is just one, because my great-grandfather came and founded a town called Sungai Bakap and started a sugar plantation. And he bought the land from a Frenchman, and he called it 1,000 acres of swampland. He drained it, he planted sugar cane, and he called it Val d'Or. Now, Val d'Or is not a Chinese word, so we were wondering, why did he call this vast estate Val d'Or? And because he bought it from the French, we finally discovered that it was the Frenchman who advised him to call it the Valley of Gold. Now, there is no gold there, but when the sun rises and when the sun sets, the whole plantation had a golden hue. So it's called Valley of Gold.
Cool. So how is this heritage that you are researching and will gather, how is that going to turn into a tourism product?
Well, here we traced back to how did they come. And they came in 5 mast junks called Penchili boats.
Junks.
There are 5 masted junks. So immediately, they came out from Swatow and they moved to Batu Kawan, to Bukit Tambun, where they then served and gave free labor for 1 year to pay their fare. And they went into the swamps, they worked, and they then got land, and they grew commercial crops. So you can trace every family from sugar manufacturing, sugar cane plantation, to sugar manufacturing. Then you can move to rubber, the rubber plantations. And the Indians, they laid the railroad, and they also they were the pillars of the rubber plantation, rubber estates. So you also have a commercial crop, which is opium, that was legal. So the mainland, northern Malaysia, produced opium for export to China.
Will this be a Malaysia standalone product and featuring this heritage, or will you be tying it in with certain places in China? I think you were talking about attracting the Chinese people to come here to trace their heritage.
Right. Once you have discovered where the Chinese in Malaysia come from, definitely our target group would be for them to discover why is it that some of their ancestors who came from their villages never returned. That is this big question mark. What is it that held them in Malaysia? And it will be very interesting when they come as visitors to our country to then relive the past. We take them back. To me, tourism is like showbiz. You make them relive the past, and they can see for themselves clusters of towns and villages that, if they look at it, it's like going back to China. They have built little towns scattered in these rural areas. You take my family, for instance. We even have our own 2 hills that are our cemeteries. And we have the estates, we have board of trustees to look after the what we call the clan house, the kongsis, from one progenitor.
And would your family make open and available that heritage and the house or museums for some tourists to visit and hear about?
This is most of the houses that we have are quite. They are not actually abandoned, but there are people living. But it was not like before when the houses were filled with people. So what we are trying to encourage family members there to do is that they can become like guides in a way of these houses.
Let's talk about Penang a little bit. You are credited, you are Madame Penang.
No,
but you've worked a lot with that city and the cultural heritage of it. Tell us a little bit about what you've done and where is it at now? What are the next steps?
We feel that Georgetown, especially the inner city of Georgetown, is actually one of the most most unique features. Georgetown is the capital of Penang, and it's on the island. So here you find that Penang is unique in the sense that it has the largest collection of pre-war buildings. But more important is the fact that the lifestyle of the people hardly changed. If they are merchants, they are merchants. If they if they are hawkers, they are still hawkers.
And I should say, before you continue, is that Penang is currently on the tentative list of to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yes, we are applying together with our sister state Malacca to vie for this recognition. But we also realize that it's not just the buildings alone. We have to educate our people to value their history, to value their heritage, and also to value the architecture. And because Penang is also a growing city, we have been successful in persuading development to avoid the inner city of Georgetown. So we try to retain that, as we call it, the inner city. So in this way, everyone in Penang will recognize their past. It can be in their clan house, it can be in the buildings that they see and the trades that are being conducted. And now they even have the Penang Heritage Trust has started an education program where they do still have records of what they call endangered trades, so that the children will be educated that these are the skills that have been developing and they will continue to appreciate it. The trishaw, for example, the trishaw is unique for Penang. It's the only one where the passengers sit in front and not at the side.
Oh, right.
And they were really getting to be endangered until the tourism the tourism sector came in, and now they become tour guides and refurbish their trishaws with private sector support, so that they can then use this as our heritage trail.
So the rickshaw, the trishaw,
It's called a trishaw.
drivers
Yes.
have been trained now to be guides.
They have been trained to give information. Secondly, they form a convoy where they will ferry the visitor from one tourism product to another. So they participate in what you call the heritage trails in Georgetown.
So these are real things, trishaws,
that's happening.
that was endangered, so they were not making much of a living out of it, and you revived that, trained them, and now they're tying in various tourism spots throughout Georgetown.
Yes, yes. You see, because if you look at Georgetown, you have the clan houses, the Chinese clan houses. You also have the Malay Quarter, the Little India, and they are all thriving.
How far in history do they go back?
Oh, it goes right back to, I would say, the early 19th century, because 1786, Francis Light came, the British came, but it was only in the early 1810s and 20s where the immigrant races came in. There was tin mining in Kinta Valley where they were fighting for their rights. So you have different groups of Chinese and different groups of Chinese siding with Malays, to get a share of the tin mining rights. So this history goes back to the fight between the Gihins and between the Gihins and the Tua Pek Kong, as they call it. In Perak, it was a fight between the Gihins and the Hai Sans, right? So there are battles galore. And this is what I want to do. What I want to do is, even within the inner city of Georgetown, you can reenact history. You can show, because we have our very active martial arts group, and they can actually dress up to do street battles. And there is a well in Georgetown where we believe the skulls of the Gihins are still in it. The well has been sealed, but the well is still there.
The architecture, the buildings within Georgetown, what kind of work needs to be done or is going to be done?
I like the way they are restoring buildings in Penang, because
Who's they?
well, there are many groups of people. Now, if you look at what we call there are certain people who really love heritage, and their pet project is to go to buy one of these buildings, restore them, and they may be Australians or Singaporeans or Americans, but they're doing it. So we offer what we call Malaysia My Second Home program for them, especially for those who are, I wouldn't call them silver-haired, I would call them rejuvenated, fiery 50s and scintillating 60s,
I call them AHI, active, healthy, and involved.
That's right. And they are and they are the ones who really appreciate what it is there to see. So what has happened is quite a number of these buildings have been restored. But the owners of these buildings, when they look at what can be done, they have also started to give a fresh coat of paint, Some of these buildings have changed hands to people who buy it in clusters to be turned into commercial sites. And some have turned it into hotels. The state government has actually taken all the old quarters of their government servants and have made it into into hotels and commercial places for promotion of culture and the arts.
How do you ensure such a diverse base of ownership and players that the restoration process follows the appropriate path?
The council has guidelines on heritage. It's very recent on heritage development and restoration. So there are certain guidelines, but sometimes there is some conflict. Like for example, if you look at the buildings, they have wooden floors. But because you are going to have a kitchen upstairs, then the council will require you to have cemented flooring. And that is where you have to discuss with them and you have to come to a compromise.
And this project started when, and when do you envision that you would call it not completed necessarily, but that it's ready for showing and for marketing?
Well, you must understand that Georgetown is made up of certain clans and families and banking groups that owns owns a row of these houses. For example, the Yap Kong Si and the Ku Kong Sis, they own a few hundred of these buildings. And what they have done is... Yes.
Well, how many total are
we have about pre-war houses should come up to about easily 20,000 if you look at the whole of Georgetown, but in the inner city about 6,000 to 7,000 of these buildings, and they are still untouched in the sense that they have not been stripped down and rebuilt as boxes, but what we want to do is to encourage them to do it in a proper manner. And if you look at Beach Street now, you have the corporate members responding, like the Quark Group. Their whole row of heritage buildings, they have restored it for commercial purpose. The same with OCBC. So any of these old buildings that have been owned, instead of tearing it down to build multi-story buildings, they have restored it and made use of it for their corporate activities.
So you think, is this something we're going to have to wait many more years, or fairly soon we'll see the fruits?
Charles, I always believe that things has to evolve. You cannot, the moment you expedite it or the moment you try to push it, then it becomes sterile. It becomes it's just like it will lose something. You will lose something. But where it evolves naturally, it comes from within. Then a person who wants to restore the building does it because of the passion for excellence, the passion for bringing the building back to what it was, its former glory. Let's take Chong Fat Si, the Chong Fat Si mansion. Here is the vision of Lawrence Low. Lawrence Low, together with some friends and his wife, they restored the building right down to such detail that they won the UNESCO award. They even studied the feng shui, how the building was constructed. Where is the feng shui of the building?
The original.
Yes, and then what they did was the change of use was just to make it into a boutique hotel, sort of boutique hotel. They charge a bit more, but the ambience and to be able to stay in a wonderful, restored and conserved building, I think it's very rewarding.
So it's apparent that anybody, that this project is ongoing, and that anybody who's interested and has a passion for restoration of and learning about cultural heritage of a place like Georgetown and Penang, or as an investment, that Malaysia has this second home program where you need to invest a minimum of 250,000 ringgit, which is approximately 80,000 US dollars. You receive many benefits and as well as special treatment with visas.
Yes, and here for this project that you want to be involved in. I have to tell you this, before those old buildings were very cheap. They were around about 100,000 ringgit. But ever since you have this influx of interested people who want to restore these buildings for a second home, it has gone up in price. So the longer you wait, the higher the price will be. So I mean, it's only natural. It's market forces.
Well, it's as you say. What a great, innovative way of doing it. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yes.
I mean, absolutely. External, internal people, for the government. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, and we'll definitely come
You
visiting.
better come to Penang because seeing things happen is so much better than hearing it from someone, you know. And you must also not forget the thing that sustains Penang is also the food, you know, the lovely food. And oh, there are many selling points, but I don't want to sound like a promoter of tourism.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. I would rather want to be to promote travelers to come, because a tourist comes. When a tourist comes, the tourist expects to see things, but when a traveler comes, then they will see what there is to really see. And I want to make travelers out of tourists.
Thank you so much.